Well, welcome to another edition of Unplugged, our second episode for season 2022. And obviously, a fair bit has happened, good and bad, since our last recording. Obviously, some of it tragic. You would have heard our Shane Warne tribute last week. That obviously happened a day or two after we put down last week's episode. There's been a bit of news on and off the field for the Saints. A pleasing performance against Essendon, marred by a couple of injuries. So there was some encouragement, but some setbacks. The girls got up again, so 2 wins in a row ahead of a really tough task against the Adelaide Crows next up for them. So there's a lot on the agenda, also some hierarchy changes behind the scenes for St Kilda forecast going forward. And we have round one within a week against the Magpies at Marvel, who had they almost drew up a nomination for That's Very St Kilda, which we'll bring up a little bit later on. I half expected Braden Maynard to get off at the tribunal just because of the circumstances, but he didn't. But we got that nomination and keep those coming through during the week. It happened that as soon as we launched that segment, there was about 1 million of them in the next few days. So
I think that's so St Kilda that we launched a segment like that, and all of a sudden, all these things are just so St Kilda.
And in our pre-show production meeting, we actually came up with several and actually had to exclude some. There were that many. But I'll start off with you, Nick. We were sitting there having a couple of beers. It was good to do that at Marvel again. Been a long time. And down the Bombers, which is always pleasing, as we say, beat the 3 Cs, Carlton, Collingwood and Essendon. But your thoughts on the game with, unfortunately, a couple of injuries?
Yeah, look, it was that. I think that was the main thing. That was just nice to be back at the footy and sitting with mates and have a beer and enjoy it. The game itself was kind of strange. I think we played well in patches and very poorly in patches. Was great to see Josh Battle do what Josh Battle does and get through. Was good to see Max King clunk a couple and kick one or two. Other than that, it was just good to see them run out, really. I don't think we learned too much from it. I've watched the replay a couple of times now. I still don't know exactly how we're going to play come round one. I still don't know exactly what the makeup of the best 22 is. It seems to change almost daily, especially with injuries and other personnel issues and all that sort of stuff. But look, it's going to be a really interesting week and a bit. But yeah, like I said, I don't think we learned too much, but it was just nice to kind of get through and get a win.
Yeah, I liked the ball movement at times. I thought the defensive setup was pretty good. Rowan Marshall good in the ruck with 24 touches, and obviously Gresham coming back looked good. So I thought as a performance, it was pretty solid. Obviously, you lose Hunter Clark and Jack Billings, which hurts, and obviously the Hunter Clark one coming after. I think I'd put him up as a nomination last week as a player that was vital to our success going forward. So that in itself is very St Kilda. But H, your assessment of the game, as I said, I thought we ticked boxes. But if someone had said to me before the game, you can win by 11 and lose those two blokes, or lose by 11 and not, then you're taking the defeat.
Oh, absolutely. As I was pointing out last pod, that practice games are results. It's not really what we're looking at. We're looking at how players play, how we get through the game, hopefully without injuries, and that's where we've fallen over this time. The injuries have sort of hurt us a little bit. You think, well, they're two players who are going to be basically in our best 22, or maybe the extended 25 with emergencies and that every week. So it's a matter of, okay, now we have to replace them. It's something you would rather not be going into round one with, really. That's a matter of, we wanted to get them out there, get a practice match in, because it's compared to what you used to have back in 10 years ago, it's a very short preseason these days. The match practice is absolute minimal, and that they are so key to running into round one. And I mean, I have pushed over the last few years saying that the preseason has got too short. You're finding more players getting injured in these 2 games compared to what you would with when you used to have, say, about 4 games, because it just don't have that match practice, and they just seem to get injured. It'd be better, I reckon, going back, or even if, like they're talking about Tassie coming in soon as a team, do we go to there playing 18 rounds, play each team once, have a bit of a longer preseason, even bring back a preseason cup of some sort, and then have a slightly longer finals? You still get the same amount of footy, but I think it's just going to prolong players a bit more if you look at extending your preseason and getting them match fit and rushing into round one. It feels like that's what has happened. So it's really, it hurts teams, and there's a few teams that have lost a few key players already, and it affects the whole game when you look at it.
Yeah,
you want the best players out there every week.
Yeah, and you sense on the Tassie thing, if they go to 19, they'll either want to go to 20 or they'll want to trim it back to 18, which I don't think they'll do. I think they're probably beyond that stage now, but you never know. And yeah, I think that if that is the case, they'll move closer towards the playing everyone once model, because you'd only end up playing 3 teams twice or something like that, and it would get a bit messy. But yeah, I mean, if you factor that in, we'll touch on Zach Jones a bit shortly. But so you enter round one minus Billings, Jones, and Clark. So that's 3 top line midfielders. You can mention Hanbury. That's if he still plays for us anymore. Has anyone seen him?
Right on the list.
You almost can't count him as a loss anymore. Yeah, you almost forget what number he wears or whatever's happening. But we'll find out soon enough where he's at. But look, it's a few out. Obviously, Gresham coming back in tempers that somewhat. But yeah, it might end up by default presenting a chance for someone like Vital, who's been a bit out of favour. But we'll obviously look towards that Collingwood game very shortly. But yeah, Nick, the other one was the Zach Jones news, and I guess how long's a piece of string. Yeah, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, you wish him well with his situation, obviously taking a break for his own mental well-being. But yeah, that could be 3 days. It could be 8 weeks. Who knows? But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, far be it for anyone to you know, have a go at a bloke for you know, turning up and fronting up with you know, emotional or mental health issues, and good on him for, you know, being open enough to be able to identify that he was struggling. Obviously, you know, we don't know what those issues are, and it's not our problem. It's not our issue. We don't need to know everything that goes on in these guys' lives. But I did think that, you know, on the topic of that's so St Kilda, that you know, Zach Jones kind of pulling out of the start of the season due to mental health and well-being concerns. You know, within 24 hours of the club launching the Health and Wellbeing Centre at Moorabbin, and all those resources was, you know, just so St Kilda. I wish Zach Jones all the best. I hope he gets himself right and you know, he's able to be happy and healthy. You know, we'd love to have him on the field, but he's got to get himself right first.
Yeah, it's possible to.
I was going to say, you also don't want to have someone at the club who's not switched on. That's what would happen to someone who's having a struggle of some sort, that they're not switched on. You're basically going out to the field with 17 and a half players if he's not there. It's an issue. You go, it's better to bring someone in who is 100% ready to go, is there to play, than to someone who has their mind elsewhere. And it's not good for the club, and it's not good for them.
Yeah, and look, it's possible to, obviously we all wish Zach well, but at the same time we can acknowledge it's a loss at the same time, which it is. But there are bigger things than that. Obviously, we had similar with Paddy Ryder 12 months ago as well. He's an interesting one, which we'll touch on probably in the lead up to the Collingwood game. The girls, hard-fought win over Geelong. They looked really sharp early, and then Geelong probably controlled the second half but couldn't score. I hazard a guess it's the first time we've held a team goalless in that comp, or in fact any comp, for a very long time. So good result. Obviously tough challenge against Adelaide, but you feel like it's reward for effort now. They look like they're going to comfortably avoid the wooden spoon. There's at least 3 teams, I'd say, that are worse than them in the comp. One of them beat us, unfortunately, in West Coast. But yeah, I think we're, you know, the signs are pleasing. As I say, that Carlton game looked like a little bit of a blip. We've been severely depleted. We've lost games we should have won. I think there's some progress there.
We spoke about it last week, and you know, in the show we talked about the fact that it wasn't a lack of effort. You know, it wasn't anything like that. There was a clear, I guess, lack of talent, and that's for various reasons, which are well documented. But you know, I think also at the start of the year, the first half of the year, they just didn't look fit enough to run out entire games, and we spoke about how they would start games playing great footy, you know, moving the ball well, running hard. But then come the second half, they kind of fall away and they weren't able to play up to the same standard. And I wonder if maybe that's that's kind of turned around over the second half of the year. I think, Caitlin Grice is playing much better now than she was in the first kind of 4 weeks or 5 weeks of the year. Nick Xenos is back and she's playing some really good footy. A couple of the girls just seem to be fit and firing now, whereas earlier in the year it was like they play some really good footy for 10 minutes, and then kind of the wheels would fall off.
Yeah, you wonder whether they've looked at the season ahead and gone, okay, we're a few players down, and don't go out in those first because what would they play 10 games? You don't go out in those first few games, absolutely destroy yourself, and then just taper out the whole season. It's kind of give a balanced effort across the season, and they've been in, as we're saying, just about every game except probably about 2 games where they'll blown away pretty early, but every other game they've shown plenty and then just run out of steam. They've come towards the end of the season. You sort of think, okay, well, it's getting towards the end of the season and they're looking like one of the better teams. So it's just a matter of getting the list back, getting the mix right. And I reckon next year, which is going to come very early in August this year now. And we'll see how they go. It's a short turnaround.
I wonder how much you can put down to the change in coach. I mean, you can see the skill level, especially early in games, when they're fit, when they're not gassed, that the skill level is actually pretty high. And like I said, they play some pretty good footy. But then later on in the games, when they run out of gas, that loses a bit of its luster, I guess, as anybody does. But previously under Peter Searle, I think we were a pretty fit team. And I know that she was a pretty hard taskmaster in the way that she trained in the expectations around, that sort of stuff. And I wonder if maybe that style, I mean, Nick Del Santo is a lot more of a softer touch. He's a bit more of an inclusive coach, the new generation, whereas Peter Searle, I guess, comes from the old school coaching handbook. I wonder how much of that can kind of be put down to the change in coaches.
Possibly. I guess the other one, if Kate Shearlaw could be paid at least half the marks she actually takes, that would be good. The amount of time she clunks marks and for whatever reason they don't get paid, it's bewildering. But in any case...
Remind you of another tall blonde forward?
It does. But on the weekend, she took one which wasn't paid and then actually took one again 30 seconds later, which couldn't be not paid because it was a chest mark at the top of the goal square. But I've seen it every time I watch. She seems to clunk a big mark that for reasons completely unknown don't get paid. But it's frustrating. But we'll see what does happen. A few other bits of news, but we will do our weekly That's Very St Kilda segment, and during which we nominate things that really only happen to us. You mentioned Hunter Clark earlier. I've sort of put him up as a player vital to our chances. He then dislocates his shoulder before his next game is over and we'll miss a bit of time. But my nomination was a tweet from one of the best statisticians on Twitter in Swamp, who mentioned that someone asked him a question. Unfortunately, I probably was a St Kilda supporter, but basically he revealed with that stat that St Kilda in 2009 are the only team in the history of the game to defeat every other side in the competition within a season and not win the flag. St Kilda in 2009 are also the only team to lead a grand final at every change and lose since 1984. And they're the only team in the history of the game to outscore a team in each of the first 3 quarters individually in a grand final and not win the flag. So you can just add that to the list of frustrations. Out of the list, to top it off, I heard You're the Voice on the radio today, which was sung before the 2009 grand final, and the song is now ruined.
Oh, good. At least it's not tear us apart, but anyway. Well, I don't know if any other team
are
also
ruined, by the way, because they played in 2010. So
but 3 quarters of them anyway. But
true.
So add another thing to the list of, I guess, only St Kilda has done. Has any other team ever recruited a forward at pick number 1, who has then gone in to be or looking at going into round 1 this year, a lock as a key defender? Paddy McCartan coming back, and he's stamped his name on that team. Looking at how he played on the weekend, it's the transition that he has made. You sort of think it's why is that something we did not try at any stage?
It's also the fact that he
just
even came back.
changed.
Yeah, the fact that he even came back from the concussion. That's very St Kilda, and I might add it's also very Sydney. But anyway.
Yeah, well, they pick up the absolute scraps and turn them into gold sometimes. It's but just thinking back that it's the sort of thing that I think I actually said to someone at some point that we should probably actually do that, play him back some stage, because one problem was he getting all these concussions was he was first the ball and getting crunched from everywhere from behind. He is now using his big body to crunch the forwards from behind. He's the one who's actually inflicting these big pack hits, and he has got the body to hurt forwards when they go up for marks and make contests, and you could just see him being, he'll play a Max King this year and King won't get a kick. That's just the sort of thing that will happen. It's so, I mean, good on him. That's the first thing I have to say, though, because there's a lot of other players who probably wouldn't have come back from where they were from where he was. So he's made the most of it, and he could play 150 games from now. Who knows?
Yeah, and good on him. But I mean, the entire story is very St Kilda's luck over history that would even happen to him in the first place, and then that he would be fine in his next incarnation. But Nick, what have you got? You might have touched on it, I think, briefly earlier.
Yeah, well, I mentioned Zach Jones, and clearly that whole situation is very St Kilda. But I figure since I've mentioned that one already, we'll flip the script, and something that's, I guess, a bit of a positive, but also very St Kilda is one of our recent signings in the SSP. Jack Hayes. I don't think that there is a name that is that is more St Kilda than Jack Hayes. Has to be the most St Kilda name ever.
I think so. And he looked good too. I thought he was all right on the weekend.
He looks pretty. He's a big boy. He's a big boy. Yeah,
did some handy ruck work. I thought, he looks like he should play a bit of footy this year. You'd be picking him, but that's the thing. Probably both our backup ruckmen this year, and Hayes and Campbell, look better options than the likes of Hunter and McKernan that we've had in the past. So I think that's handy for us. But that is a very St Kilda name that we would pull him out like that. Our next special guest had quite a unique name. I can't imagine there's ever been an Armitage in the AFL prior to David. But it's great to have him speak to us now on our second edition of Unplugged for 2022.
Off the left boot, heaves it up into the 50. Raised it over the top, Armitage. Wow, what about that for a mark for a little bloke? He kicked 4 against them last time.
That's out of nowhere. That is massive.
Have a look at the lift he gets.
Oh, the little pop there in the hang.
No, he's got a bit of a knee concern, but you wouldn't know it from that.
Well, David Armitage taken pick 9 in the 2006 National Draft. One of a few Queenslanders that have made a very good fist of it with the Saints. We've spoken to Sam Gilbert, Max Hudson, obviously Nick Riewoldt, another that obviously Tasmanian originally, but via Queensland to the Saints. Armo played 169 games for the club between 2007 and 2019, and now part of a very strong St Kilda contingent out in the Mornington Peninsula area, running around with Bond Beach alongside Sam Gilbert, who we spoke to about this time last year. Armo, thanks for jumping on.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
Now, starting off with the present, so obviously you're playing a bit of footy with Bond Beach. What else does life involve? I think you're still a young father. You've had a reasonably new arrival.
Yeah, absolutely. We got little Lane, little girl. She's 8 months old. So between her and the 3-year-old Parker, it's mayhem at home, but wouldn't change it for the world. And yeah, mate, as you said, running around with Bond Beach with a couple of close mates down there, which is great.
Amo, thanks for coming on the show. Parker touched it at the top about the Queensland connection, but how did you get involved in Aussie rules football? Your dad was an AFL fan. How did that happen?
Yeah, he's a Tasmanian, and then moved up when I was born to Mackay in North Queensland. So he was a footy tragic. He barracked for Richmond for a lot of years, and then sort of when I started with the Saints, he moved over. But that's that's sort of the connection there with AFL was Dad was a Tasmanian and moved up north, and probably a good thing that I ended up playing a little bit of rugby league as a youngster, and it sort of helped me be able to tackle. But it was in the end ultimately probably a good decision to choose footy.
So we know the clubs generally send out recruiters to watch everyone and that sort of thing. Did you know that anyone had come up to see you at all, or it was just video footage, or did anyone approach you at any time saying, "Oh, okay, we've got a bit of a radar on you to have a look at you"? Any other clubs apart from us? Or
Yeah, it was probably when I was around that. When was I? Sort of 15, 16-year-old in Mackay, and at that stage, Mark Browning was the talent manager for Queensland, and he flew up from Brisbane to Mackay, and we had a chat with a guy called Jason Paul, who was a development manager for Mackay, and my dad, and basically said, look, if you're going to make a fist of it, you've got to move down south to Brizzy. And ultimately, we made that decision, and I moved down as a 16-year-old to Brisbane from Mackay, Morningside. And then that's sort of how that came about, was making that move as a youngster down to Queensland. And then ultimately from there, played for Morningside in Brisbane, and then was obviously, had a pretty good couple of years there playing for Morningside. I worked at the Brisbane Lions shop, so had a lot of interest from them. And then, at draft camp, I spoke to St Kilda once. They didn't show much interest, to be honest. And then spoke to a whole host of other clubs. Collingwood said they were going to take me at pick 10 if they didn't take me at 8. And then St Kilda were in between, and I ended up going to the Saints. So, yeah.
Now, St Kilda between about 2004 and 2009-ish didn't have a great record with first-round picks, but you were the exception, obviously 169 games, and it worked out. Can you take us through going from Queensland to St Kilda? Because there was a time of change for the Saints. They just sacked Grant Thomas. They'd either just appointed Ross Lyon or were just about to. What was it like settling into that new home?
Yeah, it was a different one, because I think a whole heap of players sort of retired as well, as I just got there or had moved on. So with Grant, going, basically they had to find a new coach, and Ross just got appointed. So in the end, I played 13 years, he coached 13 years, and we were both out at the same time, ironically. So Ross ended up taking over. He brought in a really Sydney sort of focused defence, and was all about playing your role and trademark and giving 100% effort 100% of the time. So he brought in some real strong values, along with the lists that they already had that was quite exceptional, really. So it was a trying time for those guys, but in the end, he brought in a style and a coaching philosophy that sort of took us to being a great team without obviously getting the ultimate success. We were a great side, and it was really a dynasty where we won a lot of games over that period of time.
Armo, you talk about that great team, and I guess one of the few complaints, outside of obviously not winning the flag, but one of the few complaints that factions of St Kilda supporters have throughout that period was that Ross didn't play the young kids. And what was it like for you? Did you feel like during that period that you deserved more games than you got?
Yeah, good question. I certainly did, and so did a host of others. But he made it pretty well known or clear that you had to earn your stripes, and he basically called it an apprenticeship, and you do your 4 years of footy, of toiling away. But when you did earn your spot, you earned your spot, but you seemed to go out of the team, just as easy. So, it would have been nice to sort of have someone that sort of backed you and played you for a period of time. But that's just the way it was back then. We had a really, really good team. He got a host of people, mature age recruits like Brett Peake, Charlie Gardner, Kingy Gardner, Michael Gardner, all these guys from other teams, and they sort of played, Snyder, Dempster, those guys from Sydney. So being a young guy, trying to break into the team, it was certainly hard because we ended up building a really strong team. But selfishly and personally, I would have liked to play a bit more. So would have Jack Stephen and Jaron Geary. But in the end, ultimately, maybe, playing us like that made us the players that we were today. So it's a sort of a hard one. But, who knows, mate? Who knows what the right or wrong answer is?
What I was going to ask sort of slides along into that same sort of area. They're still there.
Yep.
Where did you think you fit best into the team? What did you sort of see yourself playing position-wise? And did you get put in where basically you thought this is where I'm best suited, or did you not quite get that opportunity and didn't really get to show what you had as best to give the club?
No, I think early days, a lot of guys get sort of not shafted, but are played in that half forward role. It's a really tough position on the ground, if not the toughest position, because you don't get a lot of possessions. You do a lot of running, and you're required to put on a lot of pressure. So that was the role early days, to sort of learn your stripes, or earn your stripes. And after that, after you sort of build a fitness base and that kind of thing, you end up going into the midfield. But that sort of took me 6 years to build that tank and get into the midfield, with the running that they required, running offensively and defensively, something that you got to learn from the juniors days. So yeah, half forward probably was my best suited role. I was more of an attacking player anyway, so that's probably where I did see myself, was that half forward, mid early days. Yeah.
07, so you debuted at the same time as Brad Howard and Justin Sweeney. Now, Sweeney played one game, Howard played two. You played 169, so you've obviously kicked on. Your first game was an ugly game against Hawthorn at the MCG. The following year, you played a lot of footy, including a prelim. And then 09 and 10, you played a lot of footy late in the year. I understand before the 09 grand final, given the conditions, that a lot of you guys, yourself, Jack Stephen, might have warmed up before the game. Is that true? Were you close-ish to getting a game in that grand final, or was it not quite as close as that might seem?
Probably not as close. I think I ended up the last training session, I ended up doing a little hammy nick, which was unfortunate because we ended up going on to win 19 in a row. So, mate, I basically played every week in the VFL up until round 18, and I was, putting on really good, strong performances, but St Kilda kept winning every week, so there was no way Ross was changing the team. So we ended up resting a whole host of guys, and that, sorry, the dog's going nuts. Resting a whole heap of guys, and I think it was that round 18 game against Hawthorn down in Launceston. We ended up, we weren't meant to win. We rested 8 of our senior players, but we ended up getting over the line with a whole host of our young guys. So I played another 2 games for the year, and then ultimately got dropped for finals. And to be honest, I don't reckon I was ready anyway. It's just a totally different step up from VFL to AFL. And I remember by that last game, I was sort of cramping in the third quarter. So to go to another level in finals, I don't think I was ready, but we did certainly warm up and played a part by training on still when the VFL team were out. So I definitely know I was emergency for one of the finals. I was warming up. I can't remember if it was 09 or 10, but I was emergency there for one of them.
What were some of the things that Ross told you that you had to get better at to get more of an opportunity in the seniors? So obviously, you mentioned that 19 or whatever, 20 wins in a row in 09 and getting back for just before finals. But what were some of the things that you kind of had to work on personally in the VFL to be able to work your way back into the team later on?
Everything. That's what it felt like anyway. It was, and I suppose just touching on the different coaching styles these days, it's totally flipped, 360. It's all about being positive and working on your strengths rather than, magnifying your weaknesses nowadays. So that was probably a thing back then where it was you were doing a lot wrong. There wasn't a lot right that you were doing, which I don't think, helped guys that were young coming in. So, look, there was defensively was definitely one. I got pointed out just about every week on the footage for not being defensively as strong as the team wanted me to be. But I wasn't alone. I think they just coach you to a point where they wanted you to be a complete player, and that was never going to happen for anyone really. They've all got their weaknesses, but that was probably the main one, was just the defensive running and that kind of thing. That was always sort of pushed on me that I needed to improve on.
Now, on a personal level, when you came to the club, did you find you latched on to anyone that was already there, or some of the players that maybe came in at the same time as you? And as you progressed through the team, did that sort of change at all? And in a social sense, did you see the same sort of players on field as you did off field?
Yeah, I think so. I had some great role models in Lenny, BJ, Dale, Joey, these types. And we were a really close group through that period for sure. There was a lot of external factors that were happening at the club at the time, and Ross and our Shawnee Richardson, our psychologist at the time, really brought us together. And I know that a lot of people heard the Saints bubble, but and only what we did externally mattered, which in effect, right or wrongly, it sort of motivated the group to do well. So, those guys certainly took me under their wing and try to help me improve my game. And then, ultimately, footy clubs make you a better person. So, but I still catch up with Mildy nowadays. He's still an absolute legend. Same thing, just takes guys under his wing, and once you connect with him, it's no going back.
As you became a leader, sort of 12, 13, 14, 15, and became a regular in the side, St Kilda started to struggle. How did you go moving from obviously not being a regular to being a regular, but also almost becoming a leader straight away with the retirements of Blake and Milne and Kazitsky and various others? Goddard left the club, Del Santo left the club as well. How did you find that transition? I think you had a period during that time where you had 34 games in a row of 20 or more possessions, which at the time was, I think, a league record. So you seemed to handle it pretty well. Yeah,
I think so. I think, the naturally the position I play and the way that I play with, sometimes kamikaze going in stupidly crazy for the ball or the man, sort of demanded respect from teammates and sort of help them, inspire them to into action sometimes. And you still see the guys today, Selwoods, those types that do the same. They inspire their teammates by the way that they play. They might not necessarily be the biggest talkers, and we've got one right now in Jack Steele. Just the way he plays, he's courageous, and blokes just jump on the back of him. So I think naturally it happened, but yeah, certainly off the field, I had to sort of potentially pull my head in a bit, and not be so much of a larrikin. That kind of thing had to change. But yeah, in terms of what I said, I had gears there. It's not always about the captain or anything like that. It's the group, and I suppose that's why we have leadership groups, because sort of everyone's different, and the more versatile leaders you can have in a group, the better off you are.
Was there something that you actively changed in the way that you either trained or prepared or played even between that period, kind of following Ross's departure, and then obviously Scott Waters' couple of years at the club, and then coming into Richo? Because that rise for you was pretty quick. You went from kind of being fringe midfielder in that really great team of 09-10 to a really prominent player and a leader. And I think at some point you filled in as captain as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably just believed that I was good enough, and I certainly worked hard. That's one thing. I used to hate running. I'll be honest, I hated it. And then I embraced it. And once I embraced it and just thought, all you got to do is, give 100% every time. Once I learnt that, and it did take a while, and I flogged myself at training and in the gym and in off legs. I ate well. It was just a complete switch. And that probably happened when Richo came in, getting some external advice from him, how they viewed me coming in. They had massive raps on me, and he basically just gave me great confidence and great motivation that I could be an A grader if I did A, B, and C. So I certainly did that. Had a really, really strong camp in New Zealand when he first came in, and I sort of never looked back from there. Unfortunately, injuries got me a fair bit throughout that period, but I did have a couple of pretty solid years there.
So if you haven't already started to do it, what's the one thing you'll pull out of, say, YouTube or whatever to show to kids and say, hey, I did something not too bad over my early years, and what's the one highlight you might go, come have a look at this, and just keep showing it as you get older and older?
I wish there was more, because there was a couple of times where I did some really good things, but it's not on YouTube. The only one I really show people now, and I sent it to my old boss the other day, is getting into me about something at Fairhaven Homes, and I ended up Googling the one where myself and Ben Stratton had a head clash, and he got knocked out and I got up and I was fine. So I said, mate, you better look out, I've got a hard head. So yeah, just that kind of stuff. But there's a couple of things where I started to get a bit tricky and kick some nice goals and that kind of thing when I was flying. But
yeah, I thought the one mark you got off the ground would have been the key one.
I'll definitely frame that one day. Definitely.
Yeah, when people talk about that comeback game against the Bulldogs when we were 55 points down, everyone talks about Jack Billings because he kicked 4, but you had 45 touches that day. So that's probably one. The last one from me, 16-17, St Kilda improved quickly, nearly made the finals in both of those years and just couldn't quite go on with it. Why do you feel that happened? It felt like under Richo, we went from being a really open attacking side, and then it really did tighten up a bit from 17, 18, 19 onwards. Did you feel like that side could have gone somewhere?
It's a really tough question. To be honest, they seem like a bit of a blur to me. I can't really pinpoint why or why not. To be honest, just sitting here right now, it's probably something. Like I said, it's just a bit of a blur. I don't really know how to answer that, to be honest.
No, that's fair.
I was probably on. Yeah. To be honest, I started to be in the VFL, and with in respect to still being a leader and showing the young guys how to play and show them the way and that kind of thing, certainly. But I started to be on the outer, I reckon. I started to sense a bit of that my time might be coming soon.
Armo, just a two-parter for me to finish off, but do you reckon you were stiff not to have won the best and fairest in 2016? And the second part of the question is 2015. What was so towards the end, you had some concussion issues. How bad did that get, and did it impact kind of life outside of footy?
Absolutely should have won it in 2015, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I'll tell Jack Stevens to that day, he's only won 3 DNFs because I should have won the 4. I should have won his third one that he won, I think it was. So, and then, the concussion, I got concussed, a really bad one in the VFL at the midpoint. I think it was about June, July, playing for Sandy, and that ultimately had a lot to do with me retiring at the end of 19. I had headaches there for 6 to 8 weeks. Was seeing a specialist every week. So that's and I had a little fella. So that ultimately, made my decision a lot easier in terms of not going on and playing footy. But it's a tough one. I don't know what will come of, because I had a lot of concussions and I had a lot of problems with head knocks. So not well documented, but there's certainly things that do worry me, come later on in life with memory and anger and that kind of thing. So we'll wait and see. But so far so good. But yeah, hopefully touch wood, a couple more years of local footy without any problems, and then that'll be me feet up, and then I can just sit back and watch, and hopefully Saints get one not too far away.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask to finish off whether being involved with local footy so much still, and the last 2 seasons obviously haven't helped at all, but do you see yourself getting along to many games, or are you just someone who's probably going to sit back at home or at the pub or something after the footy and watch it from afar?
Yeah, no, Milne and I are still involved at the footy club. Well, we're meant to have been anyway the last couple of years with hosting like a Halos room on a Sunday and get some past players back, but that hasn't happened. So I'm not sure what capacity we will again, but mate, I still love going down to the club. I go down and see a few of the boys, and I'll certainly get along to as many games as I can. Take the young fella once he starts getting a bit older and shows a bit more interest, and then probably with past players just catch up and go to the pub and watch them. But yeah, we still we watch them fairly closely still.
Now, you were tough, hard-working, consistent, reliable. I think fans always like that. And you're always a very, very popular Saints throughout the course of your journey. Armo, thanks for joining us, and good luck with everything going forward. Well played.
No worries, guys. Thanks very much. I think I got 1% battery, so it's about to die. So
we
good
snuck
timing.
it in.
That's it.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Guys.
David Armitage there, 169 games, tough customer, used to go forward and kick goals a bit as well. Did some very good things for the club. And yeah, I think 2015, he had about 600 disposals, kicked close to 20 goals, and very stiff not to have won the best and fairest in a side that struggled. But we looked at Collingwood. They got some good news on the injury front with, I think they got Howe and Adams and a couple of others confirmed as starters, but they have lost Roughhead. Also, Kruger, I think, went out of the side. Also, their young defender, whose name escapes me, got injured during the week.
Charlie Dean.
Yeah, and Braden Maynard with the suspension, and a couple of others as well. But, I mean, it looks like they'll be weaker in defence and will be weaker in the middle. So if we can break even in the middle, hopefully we've got the weaponry to maybe exploit them, and maybe slightly more firepower, hopefully. It's first game for McRae. Young Dacos for them looks pretty good. Obviously, Nicky had about 27 on debut in the game against the Giants the other day. So they've got a pretty good midfield. Their issue last year was scoring, certainly, and general skill level with the ball. But they had some good wins. They beat Melbourne during the year, ran the Bulldogs to a couple of kicks. So, yeah, not an easy contest, particularly first up with a new coach. But hopefully we can, scrape through a couple of these early performances, get some players back. We're not sure where Paddy Ryder sits. The club haven't ruled him out yet. They said they were taking a conservative approach on practice matches, so he's not without a hope, but he is still sore in the Achilles, which is a worry because that's what kept him out at the end of last year as well. Leo Connolly came back via the VFL, so that's good that his concussion is at least over in that sense, but can they pick him straight off that? I doubt it. And then, does it bring Bytel into the equation to replace Clark? Where does Ben Long fit into it? Or do one of the kids like Owens or Windhager get a game, or Wanganeen, Malera potentially? So, they're the things, H, that I'm sort of looking at towards Friday night.
It actually makes, like, generally you say you're only as good as your bottom six. It's going to make it quite interesting because almost for both sides, that bottom six are looking for that position while these other players are missing. So you expect some of the lesser likes to actually step up a little bit, give something, because early on, it's the time to show that they've got something right now, to give a reason not to be dropped when the other players are coming back in again. It gives them a massive opportunity to basically, cement themselves a little bit, and it even makes the team for the season ahead. If we look and go, hang on, these players have actually got something to give us, that depth becomes a good thing, and players finding position, it's one of the best things you could possibly have. That means they train just that little bit more, a little bit harder, just to show it on the track. Then they get to the game, they play a little bit trying to get, I guess, a little bit better at times. But yeah, get some of these younger kids in early, give them a few games, because you find that a lot of the younger players, I guess, have that break at some point. So they'll have some of them have a few games, maybe bring a couple of the other kids in afterwards after they've had a couple of games, or if they're really playing good football, don't stop them. But it's just a matter of give them that opportunity, show us what they've got, and then we'll build from there. But basically we have to get the core right first, and then build around with those players and find just which ones do work and which ones have the best thing to offer the club.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think our bottom six is better than Collingwood's bottom six. I think if we don't win this game, I'll be really disappointed. It's a tough one because you never quite know what to expect in round one. I mean, we saw last year, we turned up in the wet in Canberra against GWS and rolled them up there, and then came back the next week and got thumped a couple of weeks in a row. So you never know exactly what to expect. But I would be disappointed if we can't beat Collingwood. I think they are the exact type of team that we need to be beating if we're talking about being legitimate this year. We need to be beating your Collingwoods and those types of teams. Cooper Sharma's an interesting one. You talk about kind of guys grabbing those opportunities when given, and Sharman did that late last year, but it seems so far in the preseason that he hasn't had that opportunity. He only played the last quarter against the Bombers.
And he's not playing outright forward either, which is interesting.
And in the intra club, he played some backup ruck and kind of around the ground and on the ball. So I'm intrigued as to what the plan is with Cooper Sharman and kind of whether he even gets a game in round one.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it appeared to me that, he was playing as a third leading forward late last year with Membry and King, and then obviously without King. And this year he's been a bit everywhere. So I just hope they're not getting a little bit too clever on that. Obviously they're working towards a plan, but it appeared that he had found a role. It doesn't appear to be an obvious reason to change that too much. Mason Wood will be interesting. He spent a bit of time on the wing and forward, but I think he's looked good most of the time he's played for us, actually, even last year. So whether they play him wing or forward. And Ben Patton, who in the intra club, they forecast that he might spend a bit of time on the wing. And I like that sort of creativity, but at the same time, you don't want to reinvent something that doesn't have to be reinvented. So whether he ends up settling back into his role in defence remains to be seen.
Yeah, the one thing to look there for Patton is that since he got injured, you've had Webster coming back into the team. Battle's now moved down there. It's getting a little bit crowded. He might take that spot that Clark was sort of playing, possibly, running off the back line. He's got a little bit of pace, but he's also got that strong intercept mark. That's the one upside I guess he has to what we get from Clark. But yeah, Clark's probably got the better skill, the better pace. So it's playing the same sort of position, but just a different skill set, I guess, from the two players. But that's where he's got to find, I guess, the runners off him instead of moving the ball himself. So, how he gets used will be interesting, but it's a good problem to have. We're looking at, as I said, plenty of players who can play plenty of different positions, and it's players who we know have played a couple of different positions before as well. If something doesn't work somewhere, we can sort of shuffle things around a little bit and just change it up a little bit, I guess, to see where we're at in the game. If I hope Rats maybe changes things a little bit quicker compared to what he did last season, because there's a few times last season where things weren't working and it just felt like, okay, he's not changing anything. Is he waiting for it to work, or he doesn't know what to do? So if things aren't working, let's get a bit more proactive this year and just switch things up. And if it doesn't work, the whole game obviously wasn't working. So yeah, we'll get past it, as long as at least we tried something.
You talk about the back six and that defensive half getting crowded. I wonder about Jared Lynott I mean, we've seen over the last couple of days or early this week that the club confirmed that signing of Jared Lynott, and clearly, there's a bit of a hole there with Nick Caulfield going down and some unknowns around how that back six fits around Josh Battle moving back and all those sorts of things. But do you think Jared Lynott was signed as someone who is going to play round one and is going to play most weeks to fill that Nick Caulfield role, or is he purely a depth player and they're going to try and fill that gap with guys like Jimmy Webster, Ben Long, Mackenzie, etc.?
I'm curious as to what the strategy was. I guess they played well against Essendon, but were they picking that side with players that were more likely to play in round one, or was there a different strategy in mind? Because, as you say, Sharman played less time, Bytel didn't play, Long didn't play, Jared Lynott didn't play. So you can't play everyone. You've got to give guys games. Obviously, Ryder still in the mix who is being rested. So, yeah, I'm curious as to whether not playing in the Essendon game was a bad sign that you weren't in the mix, or if that was just some sort of other strategy. But, yeah, I mean, if you look at that starting point for the back six, so does Patton play down there? Wilkie will. Howard will is in good form. That Battle's going to do that. That Webster's probably going to start, obviously, in that role. So, and then, who replaces Caulfield? Is it just Patton that slots back in there? So, yeah, I would think that he'd be very, very close to a game if he hasn't got a game. But I think it also depends how they set the midfield up. So, is it one of the kids that plays? Is it somebody like Patton that pushes up onto a wing and therefore frees up a spot in defence? We'll see. But, yeah, I think that Lynott would be very, very close.
Yeah, it'll probably come down to, I guess, who the opposition is as well. You think sort of with Collingwood this week, they're probably a bit more dangerous with their smaller forwards. De Goey's kind of that mid-sized forward. He's not a big forward. He kind of plays big though. But you can put a smaller defender on him to try and beat him still. I think Lynott's sort of on the bigger side. He's not huge, but he's got a bit of height to him.
He's about 193,
195, yeah. So he's got a bit of height to him. He's not massive size wise, but he can take a bigger forward. So his selection, I think, is going to come down to who we're playing, because we got a couple of big backs already. If we're playing against a team who has a big, tall forward line, that's where we might find we use him. But other than that, I think he's going to be more of an insurance policy. It'd be good to see him get games, but the less we have to use him, we're probably in a better position, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment, that you want those guys to not have to be called upon too much. So, obviously, we'll wait and see if Ryder plays. Otherwise, you think it'd be Marshall and Hayes, probably. Grundy's looked all right in the preseason. It'd be nice to be able to double team him with both of our ruckmen. Otherwise, obviously, it's a huge job for Marshall. That would be pivotal to the result. His ability to contain. Grundy has got on top of him a bit in the past. Marshall's looked in good form. Good battle with Draper the other day. But I'd love to have two against Collingwood. Otherwise, Marshall's got a lot of responsibility to us winning this game.
Yeah, you wonder whether Campbell might be, because you'd assume Cox is going to be.
Probably,
Cox is going to be the second ruck.
That doesn't worry me too much.
Yeah, you're putting. You either go the bigger body against Cox, or you go to younger, faster with Hayes. There's your two options. Do you try to match, or do you try to find a way to kind of beat him with that player? So it's just a matter of which way. Yeah, they're thinking, okay, what's the best matchup to go with against what should be? I'm assuming Cox should be their second ruck. So, who's the best option against him?
The other bit of news during the week before we wrap up is obviously the succession plan put in place for Simon Lethlean to step into the CEO's role at the end of this season. Matt Finnis obviously implementing a lot of change, including the Danny Frawley Centre, which came up during the last week prior to that announcement. So, what's everyone's gut feel? I must admit, I'm a bit of a footy head. I don't, I'm never hugely across, that type of admin type stuff. I should be, but I guess I'm a bit more nuts and bolts in that sense that, I kind of take those things on face value and go, okay, just get it right. Don't stuff it up. But as for whether they have or not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one to kind of evaluate, I think, because there are so many factors at play with a club like St Kilda and where they are, the type of money that's coming in, and performance on field obviously is a big one. But the CEO's role doesn't necessarily need to relate to on-field performance, and I think the impact that Matt Finnis has had on us as a footy club kind of transcends that. You look at some of the things that he's implemented with the pride game and inclusivity at the footy club, is it the Danny Frawley Centre, like you've touched on, bringing us back to Moorabbin. These are all incredible things that have happened under his stewardship as a CEO. In terms of who was going to succeed him, I think it was pretty much always going to be Simon Lethlean. I mean, he was being groomed for the top job at the AFL before a couple of high profile things happened. So that's no surprise. That's no surprise at all. I guess probably the surprise is that it's taken 4 years for it to happen. But I think that it was always going to be Simon Lethlean. I think he's a very good operator. I know that not everybody agrees with that, but you don't get to where he's gotten to in big organizations, in big sports landscape like we've got here in the AFL, without knowing what you're doing, and he knows what he's doing. So it's certainly going to be very interesting. I hope for all the good things that Matt Finnis has done for the club that we can kind of set him off in a good way, and I'm sure there'll be kind of a lot more stories told throughout the course of the year, and whatever he chooses to do next is up to him, obviously, but wish him all the best.
And it hasn't just been at club level as well. I've heard of personal stories of Finnis dealing with fans, just replying to emails. He has put time aside to do that sort of thing, to I guess mix with the fans and let them know, okay, this is what we're doing, this is where we're at, and just answering general questions that they have, the wanting to know where we're going or what we're doing. Or he's been very open, which has been fantastic. So it's been quite strange though, because it feels like he's been there for a long time, but it feels like he's only sort of just got here, done these things really quickly, and he's getting back out again at the same time. It's been 8 years, but you could guess that he'd been there for 15 years, or you might go, I've been there for about 4 years or something. It's that weird feeling of, feels like it's been forever, but hasn't been that long as well. I was sort of, when they said 8 years, I went, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's been that long. But if you asked me how long, I wouldn't have had any clue, to be honest. So, but the one interesting thing that someone brought it up on the radio today, that they've got, so Lethlean coming to the top now, who is great mates with Clarko. And you sort of go, well, we don't, I mean, we want Rats to succeed. We want him to stay. We want him to be successful. But that stepping up now, does that kind of put something into play? Or it's interesting to see, because I think I've got him more aligned with Gold Coast at the moment, but
potentially
you just never know. That's the thing. You don't know what's going on in the background, and is that a possibility at some point? We don't know.
Yeah, hopefully we win enough games that it doesn't matter, obviously, but we'll wait and see what does happen. Obviously, that will be a pressure on any club that struggles, with the exception of obviously clubs like North Melbourne or Adelaide or whatever that might be a bit steadier, or certainly teams like Melbourne or the Bulldogs. But teams like us, the Gold Coast, West Coast, Port Adelaide, teams like that would be in that conversation. Nick?
I just wanted to say, I think before we finish up, that it would be remiss of us not to recognise the birthday of the great Tony Lockett.
Of course. Yeah.
And, he's obviously the man that this show is named after. And so just wanted to say happy birthday, Plugger.
The big man Lockett, here he comes. And a good mark, and that is beautiful football. Terrific team play that by the Saints.
Wasn't it terrific?
Now Lockett for his second goal. Kicks, no doubt about it, right through the middle. Robert Harvey, Lockett, the leader's on. Out he comes, and he makes 35 metres from goal. Robert Harvey's had 9 kicks and 6 handballs. Now the champion full forward, Tony Lockett, kicks a goal and he puts it through. Vidovic again. Hamlet punches it, but straight to Newport. This is Nicky Winmar, the long bomb. Oh, danger here because Lockett is there. Oh, look at that for a mark. Oh, what a great mark by the champ. Spencer looks like he's got the big job now. Oh, he'll find it hard on Lockett. Tony Lockett going for his 4th, and more importantly, a chance to give a good little lead to St Kilda. He's put it right through the middle. On to Dean Rice. The St Kilda running players doing very well. Here's Lockett. Was he held? Umpire calls play on, but he's got it. Tony Lockett. Oh, what can not this man do? He is brilliant.
Newport squares it to Winmar, and Winmar's away and kicks it to Lockett. And he takes another one. Oh, this is a celebration. And he's lining up for number 6 from 45 metres out. Drop punt as always, straight through the middle. 6 to Lockett.
Anyone offhand have a favourite Plugger memory? There's about a million of them that you could choose from, but for me, it's probably the one I think about most is the 91 elimination final where he kicked 5 goals in 15 minutes in the second quarter. I was only young at the time, but I know for a lot of Saints fans, that was it. We haven't played finals for 18 years, and here's Plugger ripping this game to shreds. He kicked 9 goals, 6 that day, and unfortunately, he was just slightly wonky in front of goal. If he had to kick 11, we would have won the game, and he missed a few sort of gettable ones. But probably the greatest player that's ever played the game. I know some people will dispute that, but it's difficult to argue that case. So, there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, you mentioned 11, probably the 11 on the Mother's Day. I mean, he got the 11 goals. These days, he probably would have got 11 weeks for the incident as well. So it's, they say like pictures don't, or you can't hear pictures, but you can pretty much hear the commentary when he launches the ball into the front row of the Sydney cheer squad, trying to knock off Kenny, I think, the guy in the front row, trying to knock his head off pretty much. So you can pretty much hear the commentary leading up to it and into that point. So I think it's a bit of a part of the highlight that anyone can sort of recall at any time.
There's so many out there. I mean, there's the Pig, there's Danny Caven, there's so many. There's that state game, that forward line with Gary Ablett and Jason Dunstall as well. I mean, there's so many, but I always go back to that 91. You talk about the 91 elimination. I talk about that game against Adelaide at Moorabbin. He's been out for 8 weeks or 9 weeks, whatever it was, and comes back and kicks 9 in the first half. And was just, I mean, you said, Parker, there's probably some debate and dispute around the greatest of all time, but he's without a shadow of a doubt the greatest player I've ever seen play. I'm not sure that he in my eyes can never ever be beaten in that title. I've never seen anyone like him, and I'm not sure I ever will.
That 91 season sums it up. So he's go on, hey.
I was going to say, hopefully, if there is someone that is better than him, we get him. That's the hope.
I think he had daughters, unfortunately, old Plugger. But that 1991 season, he missed the first 6 rounds, kicked 127 goals in 17 games. So if he maintains that average and plays a full season, he kicks 175 goals for the year, kicked 132 the year after. I think at the stretch between 89 and 92, he played somewhere in the vicinity of 60 games and kicked over 400 goals. It's completely ridiculous. That's the greatest run anyone has ever produced. There's very, very little conversation, I think, that can be said to the contrary. As we sign off, obviously, we did our own little Shane Warne tribute. We'll release the next part of this as a separate episode in full, but we talk about Tony Lockett being the greatest of all time. Shane Warne very much in that conversation as well. And obviously we know from his tragic passing last week that we shared our words. Thought we'd check in with one of his opponents as well. Here is a few minutes of former England captain and one of the greats of the game himself, Alex Stewart, reflecting with us on the life of Shane Warne, and that full chat will be released separately in the coming days.
First came down to Moorabbin here 1986, 32 years ago. The place has changed a lot. For the better, it looks fantastic, the new changes down here. Got great memories of coming here and playing. I've got great memories of watching the boys play. I got to know a few of the guys, Robert Harvey and Nathan Burke. Brett Bowie became a good mate. So once then I sort of watched their careers go off. I was a Saint. And wherever I am in the world, I log on, watch the games all over the place. I don't miss too many. We've got so many wonderful supporters and so many people barrack for St Kilda, but even the people that don't barrack for St Kilda, it's like they want to see St Kilda do well, and there's been so many near misses over the years. You can't just jump off. Yes, we all vent our anger and frustrate like we do every football supporter. Don't lose faith.
If you look at some of the big moments, there are a lot of big moments in Shane Warne's career, but when Shane Warne took his hat-trick, Alex Stewart was at the other end, bravely battling on with a broken thumb, I believe. He was obviously in the change rooms for the Gadding ball. There's the incident where Shane Warne went down to Silence Bay 13. Alex was captain of England at the time, and when things got nice and rowdy, and he's been there for the majority of those Ashes series, with the exception of the last two that Shane Warne played. Alex, it's a pleasure to speak to you. It always is, and thanks for joining us.
No, pleasure to be with you, but obviously very sad circumstances. But now, as you say, Warne, I played against him a lot. He got me out a lot. I can call him a cricketing mate and someone I had massive respect for. It's just very, very sad news, and obviously with the loss of Rod Marsh as well. I've said all along, it's not just Australian cricket that are going to miss these two greats, but the game of cricket is going to miss these two wonderful people.
When we bring up Shane Warne and you hear his name, is there a memory that immediately comes straight to your head? Is there one place you go to, whether it's one battle, one game, one moment?
Probably the flipper he did me with first time I played against him in Brisbane. Remember that 3-4, I think the tour was. We'd played against, or not played against him. He'd bowled us to us in the nets on my first Ashes trip in 1991. He was probably at the academy then in Adelaide, and he bowled leg spin out the back there in the nets to us as a net bowler effectively. But already people were telling us, watch out for this fella. He spins it big. He's a prospect. And then, say, a couple of years later, I've cut him for 4. Next ball, I went to pull him for 4. Everyone thought I was going to cut it. I actually went to pull him. And it's one of the few times I've been done for pace. But to be done for pace by a leg spin is pretty ordinary. But thankfully, he went on to get 700 plus wickets, which I think I succumbed, was it 14 times? But if you ask me one moment, it would be that time. I hadn't seen a flipper before, as I proved in the way I tried to play it.
So obviously the big highlight he has is the first ball to Mike Gadding, and obviously I'm assuming you were sitting back watching, and is it the sort of thing you go, you sort of, as you say, you knew him beforehand a little bit. Did it kind of surprise you at all? Because obviously it surprised Mike, but is it the sort of thing you go, that it's not surprising, that's what sort of came out the first ball he bowled that day?
Yeah, listen, it's at the time it was, well, I think, I'll have to check, but I think I walked out the bat after Gap was out. I think, so I could be wrong, but if I didn't follow Gap in, then I was the next wicket down after that, I believe. But no, the more you see it, the more you think, geez, how would you play that? Even if you knew that ball, how that ball was going to behave, you knew that, it'd be interesting to see how you'd still try and play it. Because the amount of drift he got, it started probably on the line of middle, then it's drifted to a foot outside leg, and then it's knocked the off bail off. Watching Heels, who'd kept to him before, Ian Healy, he didn't know he was going to do as much as that either. But he's just listening. It was the making of him. I watched the Amazon Prime documentary, or whatever you wish to call it, on Shane, and watching and listening to him. He was a wizard. That is the thing. When people say to me, who was the best cricketer I played against, and I've always said it, I said Brian Lara and Shane Warne, because they were both geniuses, one with the bat, one with the ball, but they won games single-handedly, near enough for their team. And they had that, we will never lose. Whatever the situation, if I'm in the team, I will ensure that my team gets over the line. And he instilled that. Obviously, he played in a fantastic Australian side. But again, listening to the tributes since, his fellow Australians have all said similar, that he would not give in until it was all over.